Welcome everyone. On this Tuesday we have to be quick because, as you can see from behind me, the rapture is coming. I am soon going to be leaving for heaven as one of the good guys, so my last act before ascending is going to be leaving behind the recap of what happened in the past couple of days when it came to the degenerate seed farming for the reputation of the Dream Wardens in 10.2, which ultimately led Blizzard to say enough is enough, some of you went a little bit too far, so some of these players have been punished because of some of the exploits and abuses used to level up quickly the renown with the Dream Wardens. Now, even before the exploits became a thing, Blizzard was a bit shaky in what they wanted to do with this reputation. Right before the release, it changed multiple times in where you were going to get reputation, from what, how often, etc, etc. But even after the release, how the earning of the reputation worked changed multiple times. We saw at the start, at the very beginning, we saw that apparently for some reason you were only gaining rep if you were filling a blue bag and nothing else. The green bag gave nothing, the purple bag gave nothing. So you had all of these groups trying to do this farm system without filling completely the seeds for reputation. Then Blizzard changed it. Now they were like, no, it makes no sense. If rep is the most worthwhile thing in this system, it should only be rewarded if you get the epic bag. So now you have to contribute always to the max if you want to have a chance to get the rep. On top of that, we're gonna give you a chance to double up on the rep. Instead of gaining 20 per seed, you might be gaining 40. But then players said, okay, then what stops me from just using dewdrops as the contribution? I'm not gonna give seeds because seeds finish, seeds are hard to come by, and eventually I will be running out of seeds. I can just put in 5 dewdrops and be done with it, still get the rep. So Blizzard changed that as well. Right after, a few hours later, Blizzard was like, no, now reputation is no longer guaranteed unless you contribute a seed as well. So not just dewdrops, which are very easily farmable, but also the seeds. A few hours later, Blizzard was like, no, we changed the system completely. We are back, allowing you to gain rep from the seeds by just using dewdrops and nothing else, but we are now significantly changing how these seeds work. Now we're gonna give you a lot of rep in your first 5 seeds every week. 250 rep. Some players reported 225, but looks like now it's settled at 250 rep per seed, only on the first 5 of them. After you are done seeding your first 5 seeds of the week, you are down to only earning 5 rep per seed, with a chance of gaining 10. So 250 in the first 5, it's 1250 rep, which is the equivalent of doing 60 to 65 seeds that earned you 20 rep before the multiple changes. That was the final change of how these seeds worked, which is still working right now. It has not been changed further. However, as this was happening, some players started noticing some players reaching renown 18, 19, even 20 very quickly. The first of the exploits was the token macro. This was the notorious feature which players discovered, where because the tokens to gain rep are not on the global cooldown, which means technically you can click all of them at once, players put all of these tokens in a macro and clicked it so that all of the tokens would activate all at once. And because you gain 100% more rep when you have the Word of a Worthy Ally buff, because your other character got to renown 10, then you hopped on your main character with the 100% buff, you will stop at renown 9, very close to the edge, and then use the macro to use all of the 10,000 plus reputation worth of token and get them buffed by 100%. All of them. This allowed the players to jump up all the way to renown 18, 19, all at once. That was the first of the exploits, but this continued. Later on, for example, you had the reveal of how Echo, one of the upcoming World First Guild contenders, got to Renown 18 plus. Many players assumed, they also abused the system, they also used an exploits. Instead, you got the actual video as well as the explanation of how they normally managed to get to Renown 18 plus very quickly, using some degenerate but still honest strategies like parking, logging off their characters during Hallow's End to keep the buff, the rep gain buff of the Hallow's End, to then log them back in when the patch came to still benefit from the Hallow's End buff, for example. However, what for now, at the very least, has been punished has been the latest of the exploits, the one that was kept the most secret. It was interesting that throughout these last few days we heard a lot from Echo players, for example, using this type of strategy, explaining the ins and the outs of that, while Liquid players were rather silent. You heard barely a peep on what they were doing. Turns out, many of them abused a certain exploits which caused multiple members of the raiding roster to have their renown rolled back to Renown 8, to, in some cases, also get their accounts locked for 24 hours, and in all of the cases, of course, the Augment Rune is no longer usable, as well as the free heroic worm crest for crafting that you get once you reach Renown 20 was also removed from the account, from the character who reached that Renown level. Very simply, the exploit in question was getting one seed, completing or contributing to one seed, but not opening it. Wait for another plant, another seed to pop by in the same spot where you still have the chest, the flower chest to open for the reward, contribute to that seed so that now you have multiple flowers, multiple flower chests there for you to open. In some cases, for unknown reasons, you were able to simply chain spam the interact button with that flower to continuously loot from that flower multiple times over and over. You can see, for example, a couple of these Liquid players undergoing this strategy, which then later on got both of them punished with the renown rolled back to level 8. Apparently this one, for now, this one is the one, the exploit that Blizzard did consider to be against the rules. So far, at least that we have heard of, there hasn't really been any punishment when it comes to using the macro, when it comes to using all of the tokens at once. Now, it is also worth mentioning that this is, of course, completely irrelevant for 99.99% of the player base. You know, even the ones who did go in and enjoy some seed farming, even the ones who still wanted to be competitive and reach, for example, Renown 18 before the release of the season to get the Augment Rune, they still had absolutely no need to partake in any of these exploits to be able to reach Renown 18 without even too much of an effort. You know, my character, for example, is Renown 16 and 30% progression in terms of renown. It's guaranteed on the reset tomorrow in EU to get to Renown 19 plus, and I've done less than 2 hours of seed farming throughout the entire week. So there wasn't really much min-maxing, much no-lifing going on to be able to reach this milestone before the release of the season. And this will be the same for the majority of the players. My character wasn't even a human. I wasn't even gaining any special buffs besides the Darkmoon Fair one. So it was still quite an easily achievable checkpoint for any player with at least a couple of characters. At least a couple of characters to have the first one reach Renown 10 and then the second one benefit from the rep increase on that character. It is still somewhat understandable, of course, why would the very top guilds try to do everything they could to get to Renown 20, not 18. The whole thing of this system wasn't to get to Renown 18, that was quite simple. It was to push to Renown 20 because Renown 20 gives you the Enchanted Worm Crest for free. So it frees up 60 worm crests that you can now use for upgrades because you get this crest for free. Now you could be saying, why do you want to craft something with a worm crest when you can just use an aspect crest and get much higher item level? That's because, of course, for a world first guild, the tier will last at best 2 weeks, presumably. So they won't care if on week 2, 3, 4, and 5 they can get multiple aspect crests to craft the maximum item level they can on the gear. They are much more interested in being able to get an enchanted worm crest now to be able to craft strong item level for their very, very early progression compared to the majority of the other guilds. That's why they were going for this type of strategy. Now, this strategy has been punished, so as we know, very often players push for the idea that you should exploit early and often. In this case, it was done. In this case, many players benefited from the system and a few of them got punished in the end. As mentioned, many more who did benefit from the macro renown gain did not still get punished. And you might also make a case that, for example, it's not even an exploit. It's something that exists in-game. There was nothing wrong with using that system, whereas abusing an infinitely respawning seed, that was an exploit, because it was obviously not intended to work that way. It was obviously faulty, and you obviously knew about it, but you decided to abuse it regardless. So that's a much more understanding punishment, because that was a clear non-intended interaction. Now, with this recap out of the way on what happened in these past couple of days when it came to this reputation farming, my time is almost here. It's almost time to leave for a better place. So I'm going to leave all of you from NA to your release of the season, and all of you from EU, I guess, to watch players in NA get their early release until tomorrow for all of us from EU. With this being said, we're starting our goodbyes by thanking all of the Patreon supporters for the contribution and help to the growth of the channel, which can, as usual, still be given completely for free. You can like and comment down below, as well as subscribe to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, that's it. It's time to go now, because I've got to watch NA to get my weak auras and my boss mods in order for tomorrow.